It's happening. It's happening. I feel like I've been waiting for this. I feel like since you joined the book club, I was like anticipating asking you to be a host. So I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh, I'm excited too.
Yay! It looks like all of our friends are showing up to discuss.
Very exciting.
If
I'm
anyone
eating
here-
pizza, just so everyone knows. I'm eating pizza.
I'm gonna be eating pizza until like right before the live, and I was like, feel free to eat on the live. Like that's usually my move.
It was ready like 5 minutes ago.
Perfect timing. If anyone is here and not familiar with the book club, this is a book club. I hate to say that I host it, but I coordinate it.
Mm-hmm.
But every month a different person picks the book and we discuss it, and it's a good fun time, and it makes it so that there's all kinds of genres and all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And so this month we're here with Lizzie. Lizzie picked the book.
Yes. I picked Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell Stevens.
Yes, and I already told you I feel silly because I don't have a physical copy.
This is from the library. It's due back in 2 days. Perfect. So I'm gonna have to like bring it back tomorrow. But
return it. Let's see who's all here. Martine's here. Kayla's here, still trying to finish. Please give us an update how close you're getting. Not to say we'll stall for you, but
maybe a little.
Yeah, she's still trying. Natalie's here. I'm very excited to see her because I know what happened. Kindle says 15 minutes, and that was 4 minutes ago. She's trying. Oh, blaming Squash That Series. Squash That Series and not being in my own space made me not do things in a timely manner. That is fair. Danielle's here. Lots of people showed up. I wasn't sure how many people could make it to this tonight, so I'm excited to see all the people here. Everyone's just rooting Kayla on. Hello, hello. Coordinator. Such a fancy lady. I did create it. Once upon a time, it was a glimmer in my eye. Mm-hmm. I was just telling Chris, I think now with this quarter starting, I think this live show probably is 2 years. Ooh. Because I think I picked the first book in March of 21. I think we're at exactly 2 years. Because I think I said 3 years, and I was like, that's not right. Mm-hmm. I'm obsessed with this cover, to be honest. It is pretty.
I also love the cover.
I'm curious. I don't think I categorized it yet on my spreadsheet. Is it brown, or can I count it as orange?
I would count it as orange. I feel like that's the primary color.
I feel like it isn't orange, but whatever. In the Woods, nice. Yeah, so the first ever book club book was I picked it, hated it. And it was like, I think Martine liked it the most, but most people did not like it. So started the book club on a flop. So glad that we're still here and existing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to give a synopsis, or would you like me to?
I can give a synopsis.
Yeah, you might be better than I.
I pitched this book to my family because they're like music people. And I thought they might like it. I'm like nervous. Like I like recommended it to both my parents and both my brothers, and we're gonna see what the opinion.
Did any of them say they were going to try it?
Yes, both my parents, like while we were on the call, were like, "Oh, I'm placing a hold."
Oh no. Okay.
So we'll see. This is it's narrated by a ghost who, her name is Blanca, and she died in like 1473, something like that. And it is now 1838. So she's been dead a while. She's 14 when she died, I think, and she's still 14 as a ghost. And we follow Chopin, the pianist, and his lover, George Sand, the writer, and her 2 kids as they spend a summer, not a summer, they spend a season in Majorca in a little village living or staying in a monastery. And the monastery is where Blanca is, where she died. That's maybe a spoiler. I don't know. I guess we can get into spoilers.
She's a ghost.
She's a ghost. That's where the place she's haunting, and it just follows them and their time. And we've got some flashbacks to all of our characters' pasts, and
yeah, like
there's not a lot
is observing them
in
the time that we're following, which is still many, many years ago.
Yes,
but then we are also getting Blanca's like snippets of her life before she died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I also, I can talk about that later. I was going to say the timeline of you saying we follow them in a season, I really struggled with like comprehending passage of time.
I don't think they were there for very long. Like, I think we follow them.
Well, it's like November, December, January.
Yeah, over one winter.
Yeah. In my mind, it felt like years. All I know is it's not pink, so that's the only thing that Danielle has room for right now. I love that she was a ghost. I was so confused at first, and then I was like, I do find it interesting because who all read that with me? Kayla, Ruby, Martine, I all just read Mortal Follies, and it was similarly narrated. That narrator is not a ghost, but it is like, it's the same thing where it's like somebody is observing other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting comparison. Before we talk any more about stuff that happened, I want to know everyone's rating. Is that what you would like to know next?
Yes, I would love to know. I would love to know your rating because I don't know.
Okay. I mean, do you have any predictions about how I would feel about something like this?
I feel like maybe you gave it 3 or 3.5.
Okay, that's fair. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, because I'm so curious.
I gave it 2.5.
Okay.
But I think that is high for me for something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole time I kept thinking, like, this reminds me so much of Hamnet.
Uh-huh.
Except Hamnet, because you've read that now too, haven't you?
Yeah.
And we've discussed that for book club. Ruby picked it I think over a year ago now. Close to a year ago. And I think that it's the same like style of something, and I could not understand that book.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact of this, that I, with the writing style, was able to follow it and like enjoyed it somewhat. I feel like 2.5 is fair. That's like mid-range.
Yeah.
I'm excited to discuss it.
I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. This was like so up my alley. And it really like delivered. I loved it.
You also read more historical than I do and knew some of the history of this. Like you were obviously looking at I cannot say his name right. Chopin. Is that how? Okay. And then you're saying that George Sand, is that an actual person?
Yes. Yes, she's a writer. And this is all like based on a real relationship.
So like it's something that as I'm reading it, I was not following the truth of it.
Like the Parisian, like artistic kind of queer subculture is like a interest of mine. Like I wrote my undergrad thesis on lesbians in the 20s, so it's like a little later. So like this is like a little before my like but yeah, like with and I also have a music background, and so like it was really like up my alley. And I was like in it.
Okay, I want to catch up on what everybody else rated it. This was this right at the beginning? I don't know. Kayla's throwing quotes out with no context. Martine gave it 4.5. I did see that. And she predicted lower than I actually gave it. I gave it 2 stars with DNF at page 160-ish, I think. I also want to comment on that because I think you said you were bored, and I think if at that point you were bored, I think you would have slogged even worse through like the last half, let alone like it gets interesting again to me at the end, but like the last section is just a lot of like, where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
Bailey angry rated it. No, I did not. I gave it 4. The writing was very good and objectively a good story. But I am not the primary audience. The writing and narration was weird enough that I liked it. This is interesting to me because I feel like you saying you gave it 4 is high. And then you aren't like speaking that highly about it. I will say I really liked the writing at the beginning. Like I acknowledged that it was very pretty. But as I go through a story, I get tired of reading that personally. Mm-hmm. But I know that other people absolutely love that. Like that's a high point for a lot of people of this book. 1 second to say I would like this more if it was in my history hyperfixation wheelhouse. Exactly. And that's what Lizzie's saying is that it is in her history hyperfixation.
Exactly.
Which I love that you chose it to present it to us. I always think that's fun. Obviously, you picked the right thing for you to love.
For me.
If it was just like a standard narration, I would DNF for sure. But I'm like, what is standard? Because I feel like there are ways that this could have been written that I would have enjoyed more in ways that I would have enjoyed less. Like if it was very history, but I also feel like there's ways that could have made it more fast-paced. Like the dialogue could have been fun. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I literally said in the chat, Bailey, that they were real people. It's like I knew it was real history, but at the same time, I was not about to like deep dive, like look into it.
I was like deep diving along the way.
There is things being thrown downstairs. My apologies. I just like that quote. Fair. But it's at the beginning, right? Should I go back to it if I can find it? This, like right at the beginning, he's saying.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty near the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's in the right there.
2 stars. A statistically likely outcome for Bailey in the history of shelf this picks, but I just know she doesn't like her pretty writing. Martine knows me well. I actually was just thinking about doing. I feel like I don't need to rehash it though and bash on the shelf this books that I didn't like, but doing like a tier ranking of all the shelf picks so far. I highlighted a lot of quotes. I was reading it in a format I'm not used to, so I wasn't really, but. Ooh, I want to know the end of Blanca's story. How did she die? Looking forward to hearing you discuss it. I usually
spoil it right now.
Still hanging out. This does not stay spoiler free for long ever. If you're here, you read it or you want to know, okay?
Yeah. Kayla hasn't finished it yet.
Yeah. We'll give Kayla her minute, but
give Kayla a chance and then I'll spoil it.
My rating scale isn't based on my enjoyment. Mine is. I use Pile, and there are things like if I'm reading a middle grade, I'm like, okay, this wasn't
Mhm.
intended for me. But most other things, I'm like, yeah, it's my enjoyment. Ooh, I should compare my ratings to Compile and see how close I get. Honestly, I rated like characters pretty low because I didn't care that much. Same with Atmosphere, I gave like a 4, I think, because I was like, well, a little below average. I feel like the charter house setting could have been more involved. Like I understand that it's all set there and there's a reason they're there and why Blanca's there and observing there. But it still didn't feel like that immersive to me. Did you feel like it was?
I thought the atmosphere was immersive because of the writing.
Right,
Like, I think the writing made it like juicy.
right.
Um,
And
and
writing is a whole separate category, and I think I gave the writing an 8.
yeah,
Like
I thought the
I
characters were really strong. I was invested in
Ooh.
the characters. Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of it, I was just like, why do I care about these people? A little bit of it was like, why? Like, I understand the story is Blanca becoming interested in George and Chopin
hmm
because of George. And I was just like, I don't think they're that interesting. What are the other categories? I don't know. I think I gave enjoyment like a straight even 5, like middle of the road. And that's how we ended up here. I mean, standard as in just like a normal historical fiction. I like that this made me confused, and I like that our main character was very easily excitable.
I think like I would read and probably enjoy like a nonfiction book about this time period
Right.
and like what was going on, like because personal history hyperfixation. But I really liked the narration and how it was done through that, like in the perspective.
I
I
think
thought was
like
really
history presented this way makes it accessible to more people because like I would
Mhm.
never read a nonfiction
Yeah.
about it. And now I got the story because it was
Mhm.
written in a more fun way. I was more interested in our ghost story than Chopin and George Sand. I would agree with that, but we weren't getting a lot of Blanca from when she was alive. Especially there's a long stretch towards the end where we don't get
Mhm.
any of Blanca for a
I
while.
was definitely looking forward to her flashback sections, but I wasn't like mad when we weren't
Yeah.
there, you know?
Right, like it was all flowing. I was in it. I was following the story.
Mhm.
My ratings are based 100% on vibes. That's fair. My ratings are what number feels right. But Danielle, knowing you and your chaotic energy, I feel like so many things could happen. See, I thought the atmosphere was put into it by the writing vibe. Like the writing made me feel it.
Mhm.
I have no more comment on that. I don't know. I rated the writing high, and the atmosphere maybe just didn't click.
What was that noise?
Like, is everything okay?
No, it's okay. I just
my controller.
Oh. Okay.
I had it on the desk and it started vibrating.
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't know if you guys heard that loud vibrating noise
I couldn't.
that I was reacting to.
I feel like my family often makes noises, and I'm like, is everyone okay? Right.
Anyway.
You didn't think they were interesting because you aren't a ghost experiencing an awakening.
I also will say I really liked the fact that she like was 14 but also like has been alive for
Ooh,
or not alive, has been like around for several hundred years.
not a lot.
Not alive. She's been around. I thought that was like made her really interesting in terms of like the way she saw the world.
Yeah. Right, like you never reached full maturity, but now you've been
You've
around.
experienced so much.
You've
but-
been around. Kayla finished. I was gonna immediately say, tell us what you rated it, but I see she did in a minute here. That is something I liked about Blanca as well. I thought it added a bit of enjoyable humor to parts of the story. The easily excitable aspect.
Mhm.
Yes, otherwise things would be so sad.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm not sure what to rate it. I enjoyed the story as a whole, and the writing was good, but it just didn't give me 5-star feels. 3.5 or 4. I feel like also, how quickly did you read it, Lizzie?
I read it like really fast.
Right.
Like I read it in like a day or two.
That also could be affecting both Kayla and I, is that we read like half or over half and then both took a break for Squash That Series
Yeah.
and came back to it. So I feel like that could
Mhm.
also affect why I'm saying that the latter portion that I read, I was probably at like 75% of the way through when I set it down for Squash That Series. Was more of a slog was because I had also stepped away from it for a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. I read it in 2 days.
Right. Oh yeah, sometimes I look back on something I gave 4.5 stars and I'm like, actually 2. I feel like mine's often more the other way, but I don't change my Goodreads ratings unless I reread something, which I often will reread it just to prove. Yes, it's The Awakening. I feel like I said that wrong, but I think I said it right the first time. The Awakening, very identifiable for me. I feel like though that like Blanca even at the beginning of this story, like it wasn't a surprise to her that she was attracted to
Yeah.
George.
Because I think she tells a story of a woman she was in love with
Wasn't it?
previously.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I read it in a day too, maybe like a sitting or two. Everybody else though saying their reading speed of this. Circling back to Bookly, you guys all said you read it very fast. And it took me like 5 hours to read. Let me look. Like much longer than any of you said. It took me 5 hours and 9 minutes. And that's me not comprehending like the writing style.
Mhm.
Like I was trying to take my time so that I understood.
Yeah.
You know, I also did the audio and physical, which is always a better experience for me. Curious how many other people did the audio. I think most of us physically read it. You physically read it, didn't you?
Mhm. Yeah.
And usually I feel like it's like half and half. But I think Kayla also physically read it. And I'm not sure about Martine. Oh, I'm crazy. I'll just think of a book and look up what I gave it and change it. I need to prove myself. I kind of wanted to hear more about the women that Blanca loved throughout her time as a ghost. I mean, I do agree that like Blanca was very interesting in knowing more about what she had experienced since death would have been interesting, but I understand that that's not what the book was going to be.
Mhm.
How did you feel about that, Lizzie? Like, were you super
Um,
interested in that aspect? I feel like you were so in George and Chopin.
yeah. I mean, I loved Blanca and I loved her flashbacks. I definitely wouldn't have complained about more, but also I think I think it's a good length. Like I think
Yeah.
it's kind of succinct in what it does, and I don't think it would have been good if it had been a couple hundred pages longer.
I could have seen more DNFs if it was longer.
Yeah.
But I loved Blanca and I was rooting for her the entire book. I wanted to fight him. When I made my character notes, because I wrote down character names,
Mhm.
I just put Blanca, George, and then Chopin. But then Blanca, I put arrow, Ham. Just so we didn't completely forget to talk about him.
Yeah.
Oh, saying that. Yeah, but George was so androgynous, and I feel like Blanca hadn't experienced that type of gender expression.
It's also like
Yeah?
she hadn't experienced being attracted to that, but she also just probably hadn't seen it. Like she's been so sheltered and
Right. Right, you gotta think she died when she was 14 and now has kind of hovered the same space. It's not like she went out to see the world and experience. She died and kind of stayed and was kind of taking what was presented to her there, right? Like that's the impression of that you were getting?
yeah.
Kayla thinks it also probably took her 5 hours, and Danielle thinks 5 hours is fast. I think I worked on it for like 5 or 4 days before I DNF'd. Eyeball reads. I was loving it last Friday when I was traveling and taking that Squash That Series break pulled me out too much. Whoopsie. Yeah, I was wondering about the pronoun use in this one. As the story progressed and I looked up more about George Sand, I was like, okay, yeah, she, her makes sense, but I was like iffy the way it was.
Let me jump in. This is like
thinking about the true history, but in the book, I wasn't getting anything that she, I guess, identified differently.
So this is like a topic like that I'm super like interested in, kind of passionate about in as like a history person. Like when we're talking about queer historical figures, like how do we refer to them? Like when we're talking, and I think George Sand is, at least the way that she's portrayed here, I don't think it's like I don't think it's super clear like if she had lived today how she would have identified. There's some like people that like I talked about in my thesis and like people that I've like researched and written about that like were so clearly if they lived today they would have been trans men.
Okay.
But it was, and there were like people who like trans people existed, like obviously.
Yeah.
And there were people who lived that, but it was like much less common. And it was more common for like a person assigned female at birth to like take on a man's name, but still and wear men's clothing, and still use she, her pronouns just because that was like a thing. And it's like, do you, when talking about those people now, do we use different pronouns than what they used when they were living?
Right. I feel
or
like,
do we not?
Yeah. I feel like that's fine because you, like, I feel like you can't make decisions for them. And if she went as she, her whole life, then it's hard to say after somebody's death.
Yeah.
Something for them. Yeah.
That's kind of my take on it, is that like it's, even if they're in their writing say like explicitly like I wish I was a man, like that's a thing that like it happens. It's in like writing about them using what they used during their lifetime makes sense. What I think is bad is like, obviously this is bad, like people who had names that they went by like George, but then like historians calling them by their birth name is like obviously bad. But yeah.
Interesting topic in general.
It's also with George Sand, it's like, it's hard to know, and I don't know, I haven't done like as much research, but it would like it, there also is a extent to which it could have just been a pen name rather than an identity.
when
like
we,
there's
when we
there's
first had
that.
the conversation and you said there was a lot of women who took on like more male sounding names as pen names or like when they were doing business dealings, I've read a lot of historical romance and like that's
Uh-huh.
a common trope that like the working women
Mm-hmm.
will go like under a man's name to
Yeah.
present their work. Like I've read a map maker, I've read like, you know, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Signed in a more assumed to be
Yeah.
male name. Like talking about a girl in men's clothes, but I think the aspect and point of the story lent itself well and it did a good job. Like it didn't have an overt conversation about it unless I missed it. And it didn't feel like that was the story it wanted to tell anyway. Yeah, I feel like it was very like this is how she is and that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Not the
Yeah.
most interesting thing here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been interesting to see her developing feelings for women while paralleling that with George developing her new identity. Like more
could see
Blanca's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those aspects of history that's not really a right or wrong. It's just being as respectful as possible.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
it's definitely something that's talked about among like queer historians a lot. Like how do we refer to people?
I think Marty makes a good point in this comment that George could identify as non-binary nowadays and still prefer she, her, which is true.
And yeah, and gender identity to pronouns is not like a direct
Right.
like one identity does not mean one set of pronouns, which is what Martine is saying.
Right.
And so like making that decision of like what pronouns do we think this person would use is like
Right.
a little iffy.
Okay, where was I? I had a nervousness it wouldn't be good overall, but I, of course, taken as a cis woman, thought it was well done.
Yeah.
Danielle says 12 messages. I just wanted to get my point across. That's a great point. Okay, I think we should start talking more about the actual plot of the book. Maybe we should tell Natalie how Blanca.
Oh yes,
died.
Blanca dies in childbirth.
Yeah. So the whole time we are learning that Ham. I'm curious where you ended. Her and Ham are meeting up, going swimming, and they begin a sexual relationship. And when she becomes pregnant, and then Ham is like,
yeah, because Ham's like training to be a monk.
Right. He's like, well, I can't do that. And then, yeah, she dies when she has the baby.
And she dies in the monastery. She like goes there because she's like, Ham, this is your fault.
Yeah,
I'm going to die in front of you.
I'm
and you have to deal with this baby.
And I'm going to sit here and do it and scream. Yes. Okay.
But the baby survives, obviously, because she has direct descendants.
Yes. Since I left her when she was pregnant. Okay, so you did make it that far. I did think her mom's reaction to all of that was, I thought she was going to be like more mad. And she wasn't really.
Yeah.
She was like, this man will marry you. And Blanca's like, I don't think he will.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that was like, what was I seeing that very similar attitude in recently? I can't remember. I was like reading another historical thing or like watching something and like the same thing happened. I don't remember.
I also thought the whole aspect of her sister being like, do you want to tell me about, you want me to tell you about what
Yeah.
was like, I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
Hardcore. Yeah. What else happened in this whole book? I don't know. I think I struggled with the timeline because of Chopin being sick. Felt like that was a long time. I don't know why in my mind it just felt like forever. And then the goat showed up and I was like,
Oh yeah, the goat was kind of.
That one was like, there's a lot kind of happening. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Does the piano guy die?
Well, eventually.
They all die eventually, but no.
Yeah.
What is this
Yeah.
in reference?
Chopin had consumption, which is tuberculosis. Tuberculosis.
He got better, right?
Yeah.
Because towards the end, when George like goes to, like they've been separated and then they see each other again, he's like performing, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. I wonder. I think he lived for. I want to see when he died. My H key doesn't work, so I just typed coping. Come on, H. Give me an H. Someone else Google when he died. Someone who has a working keyboard. Google when he died.
$39 years old. 17th of October, 1849. 39 years old.
Okay, so he lived for like 11 years after this book because this was 1838.
And I feel like you want to say like 39 is young, but back then it wasn't.
Yeah. So Martine says he did die of tuberculosis, so he like had it and for a long time.
Okay. This last Friday was World Tuberculosis Day. Martine coming out with the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I just don't know what else. I don't have, because I wasn't maybe connecting, I feel like I don't have many opinions to put out about what happened.
I loved the way that... What?
George was not a good mom.
No.
That's the only thing I'm like, oh.
I thought the kids were super interesting characters. Like the little boy, like, and being inside his head a little bit was super fun. I liked that.
Weird, like Chopin and I can't think of the girl's name. Relationship moment.
Oh, Solange, was that her name?
Yeah. Didn't that happen?
Yeah. That did happen.
See, that's again why it felt like there was so much more time, because to me it felt like, I don't know. Like that didn't feel like that was in the middle of a 3-month relationship between George and Chopin. It felt like it was like years later. I don't know why my brain comprehended it that way.
Well, yeah, because at the end, during like the January section, Blanca's like doing the like flips into the future. So she sees stuff that happens like way later. So Solange, I think, yeah.
Okay.
So it was later.
Okay. Maybe that's just maybe what I wasn't understanding was like the telling of when and where we were. Mabel's crying because it's almost bedtime. It's like that cry, you know? She's fine.
Yeah.
His last words were, "Swear to make them cut me open so I won't be buried alive." Yikes. And that's haunting me now, thanks. I was sitting in John Green's talk about TV last week, and I was like, wow, this is also applicable to battle. OMG, I said that in my vlog. She was kind of selfish.
I agree.
I mean, same, but George was a horrible mother. OMG, when they had to walk through the storm and flooding, I was so stressed for that mule. She really did just pick this man up and take him to Spain with her family. Shake my head. Yeah, again, that's me in the passage of time. Like, why would you do that so quickly?
Yeah.
What else? I didn't listen to a single piano thing
Oh,
you sent.
I was gonna say, like, I loved the way that they brought the specific pieces in, and I think they didn't overdo it. I think they didn't do too many. It was like just a couple moments. The A natural got me. Like, I was literally like, I listened to that moment in the song and read that moment in the book like 5 times in a row.
I just guarantee that I just like swept right past that because it meant
Yeah.
nothing to me.
Uh-huh.
So that's funny to hear you say that after the fact. I'm curious if the audiobook, if they missed the opportunity to play some of the, they should have.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah, they should have.
Listen, Sydney is a bad mom. George is a bad mom. Is 2023 the year of bad moms in book club? I started listening and very quickly turned it off. I was like, yeah, it's good. Goodbye. I feel like, right, I would be the same where it's just like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what this is. Piano, yay. I wish I had realized Chopin was the Chopin before 90%. So I could have looked up the songs and listened while I was reading through those sections. Yeah. Oh, Danielle is stating that they did not take their opportunity. Because I would think at this point, like, none of that it would be like copyrighted, would it?
No.
Interesting. Strange. What else am I forgetting?
I have a
My notes are all like stuff we already talked about.
I have a tangentially related question for discussion, and that is, if you were a ghost and you had to pick a specific place to haunt, where would you pick?
Like, where would you stay? If you
Where would you want to haunt?
Ooh. I feel like, do I want to haunt in a spooky way or haunt in like I want to know what happens here way? Know what I mean? Like, do I want to bug people somewhere or do I just want to know something about a place? I don't know. I do not know. Did you come up with an answer to
I
your
have
own
an answer.
question?
This is like a question that like I love asking people, and like I've had an answer to for a long time, and I like ask people this randomly, and I was like, it's relevant. I want to be a theater ghost. I want to haunt like the Kennedy Center in DC,
Okay.
and like just like so many people passing through, like for people watching, but then also like you get to see all of the shows as they're coming through.
I guess, yeah, I'm thinking more like something locally, like somewhere where I've spent a lot of my time.
Yeah, and I grew up near there, so I like went to the Kennedy Center a lot, and it has like a nice little outdoor like not garden, but like a little balcony place. And it's nice. I like the Kennedy Center.
Is it bad that I almost want to say that I would like to haunt like a bar because I spent a lot of time there? And so I feel like when you are a bartender, you don't want to deal with any of the shenanigans that are going on, but to just be like an observer.
Yeah.
Is interesting. I feel like there's nothing in my mind that I find interesting enough with like enough people that I would want to keep an eye on it. I don't know. In like 2 weeks, I'll think of something and be like, Lizzie,
yeah,
this is my
I want to know.
I'd be in a bookstore. There are a few books I would just tear up in front of people who can't read it. Stop the hating game cough. Oh no. Well, I guess, yeah, like, can you touch things? Can you consume things? Can you? Because there's places I would like to be, like my favorite places, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, nobody's going to be there. It's going to be boring.
Yeah.
Just a Cinemark and I am the popcorn.
I feel like, but like watching like theater or movies like throughout hundreds of years and watching them change and like the themes and like that would be so cool.
But then also, if you can read books, then I'm picking like a bookstore or a. Can you eat things when you're a ghostie?
I don't
That
know.
becomes important also, right?
That's true.
Matt, I hate that book. Another DNF for me. I started watching my IQ. This has turned into the hating game slander. Ooh, haunting a movie theater. Adriana showing up out of nowhere, and I'm pretty sure she read this. Ooh, haunting a movie theater is such a good idea. I don't watch that many movies. I don't know what I need in my life. Haunting movie sets.
That would be really cool.
Martin's coming out with the idea. But I would want to see the final product.
Mm-hmm.
Blanca said she can get the essence. So like you can feel the vibe of food, but you can't like eat it. Like it's almost like you can.
Yeah.
I just need the essence of popcorn. That sounds so good. I was just thinking that the next time I do my jokes card flips, there's potential I could finish the round. And so I was telling Chris, like, ooh, maybe in a couple weeks we can get a babysitter for the day since that's my reward now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe going to a movie would be the move.
Yeah.
We got home right at 4 and had to unbox a new stove. So it was a thing. Well, welcome. I'm pretty sure you read it. If you did finish it, at least let us know your rating.
Mm-hmm.
Lizzie gave it 5 and I gave it 2.5. And we've had lots of people in between. I feel like I'm the lowest and you were the highest, and everyone was in between.
Yeah, except for like Nat who DNF'd and said 2.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm not slandering it. Like I don't think this was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have showed up to book club with 4 stars review and had more hate to give than I have today. Haunt the director into showing you the final cut. True. Because Blanca did have moments where she was like affecting stuff, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't say that I did not like it. I just said it was not for me. 2.5. It's probably the same feeling. I feel like if you really hate something, it's 1 star.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle's giving many different flavors of tea. Meh, yeah. Again, I feel like stuff like this is something I don't pick up on my own, but that will be presented to me more in the future. The in-person book club that I'm going to try to start attending, I guess, that we went to when Kayla was here, they read, just because of the crowd, a lot of historical books. So I'm sure I will have many more a discussion about similar books.
Thank you, Martine. Thank you.
A good pick. Again, what I always say is like that's the whole point of the book club is that not everything is for everybody, but we're all here to try it.
Yeah.
Lizzie will get to pick again. The cycle right now, I think, is like over a year long. Because if nobody's picked up on this, what I do is I cycle back to like, so each group of 3 is 2 people who have picked before and 1 new person. And so by the time we get back to people, it's like just over a year at this point. Glad I tried it. Really glad I got it from the library and didn't spend $27 on it. True, because I was looking for this and I almost like Amazon purchased it. And it's something I probably wouldn't have kept. So still sad that I didn't have it to hold for a live show, but thank you. In the book's general defense, my least favorite thing to read is historical fiction and literary fiction, but I still finished this one and enjoyed parts. So that's a win. I kind of feel that same way. Like it's something that inherently was not for me, and I still had a time.
That's like my favorite thing to read. Ruby is not here and I don't think she read it, but I think she would like it.
Oh yeah, I think Ruby would like this. For sure, because she loved Hamnet when we read that. And I feel like
I liked this a lot better than Hamnet. I didn't connect to Hamnet really, but I think I could have loved it. I just think Pumpkin's playing with his new toy, which is a little loud, but if you hear shaking noises. But I think I could have loved Hamnet. It like wasn't the right context for me with like a audiobook and stuff. But
yeah. I think that Ruby would love this.
Yeah.
I know it is hard because I do meet people so fast. I have like probably 4 people for my new people like already in my mind. Which is fun to have too many people to choose from than to not enough.
Yeah.
Someone needs to buy Lizzie a copy of this book for keepsies. This is a Ruby jam. Well, I'll have to go in the Discord after this and like at Ruby we all agreed.
Uh-huh.
I'm typically drawn to either old history like BCE or more recent history, 1910s and on. So I wasn't really set up to enjoy this. I'm so sad Squash It series in March's shelf. This is done. That's so crazy. It went too fast. I mean, everything keeps coming.
Everything keeps coming.
To talk about April's shelf this pick.
I'm in the middle of filming my April TBR.
I have it right here because I'm reading it this week. Anna is here. We're reading The Shadow of Perseus by Claire Haywood in April. It's not very long. 280 pages is all, which I didn't realize until I bought it.
Oh, Libby's now, it was saying 6 weeks and now it's saying 4 weeks, so I think I should be able to get it.
Nice. I will actually post the sections for this tonight because, like I said, I'm going to start it soon and I have it here so I can figure it out. But yeah, that's the pick for April. Adriana from Carbon Bonded Books herself picked it, and she is a mythology girly, so I'm excited to try this with her. Danielle's just like, can we have something to talk about every single day, please? It's frequent. I wish I joined her book club more, but I just suck at having other people tell me what to read. Fair. I mean, there's lots of book clubs that I try to participate in that it's like the only one I participate in every single month is this one. So, and Magic Tree House, if that's considered a book club. It's a read along.
It's a read along.
I know. I'm just always sad, and I just want to talk every day. You do talk every day. I have my audio for that. Oh, for this? Again, my library never acquired this. My library is rude with, I think, all 3 picks this time. Let me see, because Now Is Not the Time to Panic is finally out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me look. Because they never have stuff before it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Let me. Oh, it is. It exists. This library is 16 weeks, and that one is a lot more. I'll try. I gave it a whirl. My library did acquire it. Actually, I should say my sister's library acquired it. No. I have children.
Yeah.
I have children. And also this.
Yeah.
It's fun for us, right?
Yeah. We just need to have like a meetup. Like yeah.
Exactly.
Get an Airbnb for a week and all meet
up. That's what I always say. Like, after this, I'm not going to have any more babies for a little bit. And eventually Martine will be done with school. And what else is holding other people up?
I need to get a full-time job, be done with school and have a full-time job.
Afford to travel, right?
Yeah. Monies.
Do you know how often you hear her scream? good baby, but babies make noise. I actually think that your guys' impression of Chris is probably way off because like him and Kayla did not talk when she was here. And he also just like doesn't say much. Like he's pretty shy. Okay. Do we have any other thoughts on Briefly a Delicious Life before we part?
I'm satisfied.
I had a good time. I think this was a good chat. I had a good time reading the book. Oh, I was
Yeah.
earlier, like giving it that rating. At no point was I like, oh, I wish I could DNF this. So
Good. Good.
back to it being like an appropriate length.
Mm-hmm.
All right, are we parting? Love you.
Yes,
Very
I
nice.
think so.
This is very fun.
Aw.
I do have to finish some reading tonight, so like 20 minutes, I think. Maybe I'll do a singular sprint tonight. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.